So, Ray, you didn't dress up today, but you are in the office and you are working, and I'm at home with an undecorated Christmas tree for those of you watching online.
Dan,
yes.
are you a waiter in a restaurant? You look like
I am.
My favourite Italian waiter.
Bonjour, una cerveza, por favor. And it's nearly the end of the year, so this is a very special episode, and that's why I dressed up. Have you stuffed your stockings for Christmas yet?
No, because traditionally Christmas doesn't start until the 9th of December in our house because my wife's birthday is on the 8th. So we get that over with and then we go completely festive. So yeah, I'll be polishing my bulls in a week's time.
Fantastic. Well, this week is a special episode. It's our podcast Unwrapped and mini awards for the year. And boy, it's been a big year of agents and everything with AI, hasn't it? News and research. It's been a biggie.
Dan, you kept saying at the beginning of the year, this is the year of agents. But I think we only ever said it. We didn't really show it or talk about it. So maybe next year will be the year of agents. So what has this year been about? I mean, it's been about everything else, hasn't it? I've felt the relentless pace of change with AI in education. The fact that we've every 2 weeks tried to do an episode that summarizes the news, the research, and some of the stories, and we've always overrun and we've always had to throw things out. And then the amazing, amazing people that we've been able to interview.
Yeah.
It's just like the stories stick in me. And it's so helpful for me to have those stories when I'm talking with other people to reflect upon what we are hearing. And I don't think we're hearing the glossy part. We're hearing people talk about the reality of using AI in education.
Yeah, I agree. And you can get lost in the kind of noise, can't you, on social media and LinkedIn? I think everybody's doing some amazing stuff. We really have spoken to people who are having major impact. And I think that's why having awards and appreciation for some of the people who have been on the pod and some people who haven't, but have been doing amazing stuff.
Okay, Dan, so the podcast has been all about the humans that we've talked to this year. Yeah. So can I just throw out some geeky stuff first and let's get it out of the way?
Yeah.
So Dan, AI product of the year. From an education perspective, my nomination would be Notebook LM.
Yeah.
Are you going to go along with that?
I'd second that one. Yeah,
okay.
It's had a great effect on everybody, hasn't it? Good impact across K-12 and beyond.
It's the underdog because it's not really getting a huge amount of attention, but every time I think about a scenario to help me explain something, to help me learn complex stuff, it does a great job with us with the podcast where we give it transcripts and things like that and pulls information out. So yeah, I love it. But Dan, while I love products and Notebook LM is a worthy winner, I also want to announce that there should be Duff AI products of the year as well. So I want to nominate as my most hated AI product of the year, anything to do with AI in supermarket tills. So again, we did talk about this in the podcast way back in February. I went off on one when we were talking with Katie Ford about the fact that I hate AI tills. And this year they've been making them worse. Like in some ways it's great because it now recognizes the fruit that I put on the weighing machine, but it still has unexpected items in the bagging area. So I hate that. What's your most hated AI product of the year?
I think generally everything. I think, when people just add AI to stuff, that's killing me. And I think we mentioned in the podcast, and this might have even been last year, where I said there's going to be AI water bottles before long. And I saw one the other day. I saw AI water bottle, which is a water bottle, which had like a microchip in it to say if it was full or empty. And I'm like, you can see it. It's like clear. It's when people are adding AI to stuff and it isn't really AI. It's at best, it's sketchy. And I agree with the tills completely. In Australia, it may not have impacted in other countries. We're to know if it has. But in Australia, you've got cameras above where you're doing your self-service bagging area. I always go to people. I just drives me mad.
Do you know, I do too. And I do for two reasons. One is so I don't get driven to frustration by the technology. But secondly is because that person is being paid a wage and paying taxes. whereas that machine is not paying taxes. And so the impact on the rest of us is pretty thing. Gosh, that's
and I can get asked questions by the lady that I go to. There's one particular lady in Woolworths in Cherrybrook who kind of like, sometimes I'll put a butternut on there or whatever, and she'll be like, what is that? And then we'll have a discussion about the recipes and how to cook broccoli better and things like that. So it's quite fun and entertaining. I wear like Christmas uniform things with little reindeer hats.
Do you know the worst thing is somebody listening to this who's designing AI tills will go, oh, I'll build in a recipe app into the AI till next. Okay, Dan, we started with what we loved and went on to what we hate. So let's flip it around because I want to talk about research papers. So I want to talk about what we hate and then let's remember the things that we love. So 2 research papers that I really hate. Like the number one is...
I know what this is going to be.
This isn't the paper, Dan. This is the way it was reported. It was the AI paper from MIT that basically said AI is making us dumber. It was called Your Brain on ChatGPT, Accumulation of Cognitive Debt When Using an AI System for Essay Writing Task.
I can see images that they use on LinkedIn as well. You had brains on fire in.
And that's, of course, why a journalist wrote AI is making us dumber. It was a very limited survey. It's not the researchers' fault that the journalists and half of the people I know on LinkedIn went dramatic with it, but it just led us off in the wrong direction a little bit. But maybe I think my nomination for the most hated AI in education research paper this year was one that was a preprint. It was called Managing Academic Integrity in Online Assessments. It came out in June, and it was about how universities could manage the problem of students cheating with AI. And the reason I hate it with a passion, and also hold it up as an example, is whole sections of it were written with ChatGPT.
Yeah,
and it had, a genuine AI slop infographic in the introduction. So there was this infographic on page 3, which invented completely new words. The words it invented were euphoid, collaborative, penalties, a word that I'm not even sure what it was trying to say, ensmurg, and industry. But I think my favorite was that instead of saying professional bodies, it said professional baddies.
So good. Oh, that's hilarious.
Okay. So that's what I hated. Gosh. I'll tell you about what I loved.
There were such good ones, weren't there?
Yeah.
I'd be hard to pick from all of the ones that have come up.
Yeah, I think we've looked at about 90 papers this year. And I've put them all into a document and sharing that with people that ask me. But my number 2, my runner-up for research paper of the year was the What Does Good Teaching Mean in the Age of AI? And it basically kind of challenged that idea of AI won't replace teachers by saying, yeah, but teaching's got to change a little bit. And it said, okay, it's not going to replace teachers, but what happens if it replaces teaching? What happens if teachers use AI too much to do the teaching? And that you end up sidelining teachers because somebody says, AI can do this thing. So it kind of said, hey, AI is not a magical fix, nor is it a massive threat, but we need to think about learning design because it's more than just, can we use an AI detector? But how do we rethink designing of lessons and designing of assessments?
Where did our research come from again?
It came from series 14, episode 10, but I can't remember where the research was from.
Okay, we'll have a look. We know what it is.
I'll put it in the show notes. And it also said critical thinking is more important than ever. And I talk about that all the time. It's like when AI can do certain things of your job, what can you do? Like ask really good questions. So that's good. And then I think my number 1 paper of the year, we talked about it in October as well. Heads we win, tails you lose. So Mark Bassett from Charles Sturt University, it was the AI detector paper of all papers that basically says what we said on nearly every episode last year, which was AI detectors don't work. But my word, stop killing it once it's dead. By the time you get to page 20 and you're convinced that AI detectors don't work, it then hammers it home. So this is the paper to share with your colleagues. It comes out from Mark Bassett and researchers from 6 other universities. And it isn't just AI detectors don't work. It's evidence piece after evidence piece after evidence piece about why you shouldn't use it. I love the fact it's written in plain English rather than academic ease, and it introduces the ideas, it reminds us this is all probabilistic. It's making guesses. And so it's the paper to share. I think there's too many people still thinking that AI detectors might work. I've seen a resurgence on LinkedIn in the last couple of days.
There's a nice bit that you pulled out here. It says, unverifiable probabilistic assessments actually means total guess.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's great. So when we look into the episodes of the year, like a few stand out, but did you look at the statistics?
Yeah. So the most listened to episode of the year was the one called Learning Designers Meet AI. So that was from April. Do you remember we were at the University of Sydney conference and we had a great session with Min Hun and Corey Del Ponte?
That's right, yeah.
And they were both learning designers. So they weren't teachers. They weren't educators in the conventional sense. They were learning designers. And we talked to them about what does being a learning designer mean in the world of AI? And it got the most downloads of any, which is fascinating.
That is. I wouldn't have called that. I wouldn't have called that. It was really good, though, because they were talking about the agents they'd created. I remember that episode, and I remember speaking to them, and they were great. I wouldn't have called that one as a most listened to episode. And thank you to all the listeners listening to this podcast, because it isn't lost on us. As the listenership's gone up quite considerably over the last couple of months. So thank you if you're listening in. And these episodes, if you've got stories, please share them with us.
Okay, so Dan, let's talk about people now. Not about technology, not about episodes, not about research. Let's talk about the people that we had on the podcast. So I will add a drum roll at this point.
Okay. Wow. I love drum rolls.
Okay. So Dan, what awards have you got?
I reckon we have to, there's so many, everybody deserves an award, don't they? There's so much effort going into everything around AI and education across multiple areas this year. But obviously, when you're thinking about K-12 leadership and vision, for me, the standout award in Australia for the K-12 leadership and vision would go to System Leaders of the Year, which would be Leigh Williams, Sam Muller-Heno, and the team at Brisbane Catholic Education. Because for me, that stood out because they're doing things at scale and sharing their story. And not only that, it's not about the tools, it's about the way they approached it, the change management, and the way they continue to innovate and drive, into lots more deeper levels of agentic AI now. And they're always willing to share. Leigh was at South by Southwest, and she's at so many events. She's a massive shout out, I think.
Yeah, what I loved about the discussion was that we were looking at teaching and learning initiatives, but Leigh had this analyst perspective on it. Remember, it was the saving 9 hours, because she knows that to influence the leaders in their system, you've got to have some hard stuff. It's not just everyone feels better, everyone's loving it, but, give me a number. If you've got a difficult to convince principal who you're trying to persuade that they should put staff training for AI ahead of the 26 other things that they've already got scheduled for their CPD, then you've got to give them numbers. And so all the story behind it was fantastic. All of the beautiful stories about the way it helps students and makes them happy and everything was great, but also to have those numbers. And the other thing I noticed is Leigh talked about effectively the work she was doing around creating communities of practice, but before anybody started calling them communities of practice.
That's right. Yeah. We touched on at the end of that episode as well, Leigh specifically talking about how she supported women in technology at the same time. So you got to lead from the front. You got to kind of support everybody. And it's just a great impact. And I love stories where they get impact. How about the next award, Ray?
Okay. So the best AI professional development work.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Who are you going to give that to, Dan?
I think that one should go to Leigh, Barrett, and Prem, because they are out and about all the time. When you see people sharing stories, sharing challenges, sharing what they are doing in their work, speaking to teachers, speaking to students, doing stuff in classrooms. I think, we've interviewed them a few times on podcast over the years, and they're always willing to share. But the actual impact that I see on LinkedIn with those, just phenomenal work.
I love the social media tag that they use, Leigh and Prem out and about.
Exactly,
pop up on LinkedIn, because it is a pair. It's Leigh with a teaching and pedagogical perspective and Prem with a technical perspective, but see them work together is an amazing partnership. There was something that stuck with me that Leigh talked about, was about the fact that enthusiasm is great, but results is what gives you longevity. And so whether that is with a teacher or a group of teachers where you get them enthusiastic, but then like getting them thinking about, well, what difference is that making, so that they are thinking about the results they get, not just this makes me feel great. And also, absolutely, while there was a lot of focus through the work, and is still a lot of focus about how do we reduce teacher workload, it was done with teachers, not to teachers. So agency, keeping agency with the teacher rather than disenfranchising them with AI was great, because it was about offering them things rather than forcing things upon them.
They're also involved in communities as well. So if you think about Always Learning, they were at the conference for Cogniti the other day, the AI symposium.
Yeah.
They're always at those events. They were at South by Southwest. They part of the conversation in Australia, which is great.
Okay. Now, Dan, I thought we should have an award for the voice that best represents at least 1 billion people, if that's okay with you. Now, they weren't speaking on behalf of 1 billion people, but the voices I heard gave me massive insights into students. And there's probably 1 billion students around the world, if not 2 billion. And so there were 2 sets of voices that stuck in my head. The first person that represented 1 billion people really well was Caitlin in July. So if you remember, she was the year 11 student in Sydney. It was another one of those days where you couldn't make it. I get to do some interviews. I'm going to read a couple of the things that she said. She said that we've got to be careful in education about making sure we don't switch our brains off, because learning is supposed to be hard. This came from a year 11 student, not from a teacher. Learning is supposed to be hard, recognizing that. And she also said, look, I think AI can help, but it can also tarnish that relationship with learning. Amazing insights. And the second group that represented 1 billion users was the girls from All Hallows.
They're so good. Yeah, they were so good. And they really shared the things they were doing, the things they liked, the things they didn't like as well about the AI, and then the different tools and variety of context they were utilizing it in, from history to science. It's just great to listen to them and the way that they could kind of share what tools they were using. Hopefully listeners gained a lot from that as well, to see what kids were actually using.
And they were aware of privacy. They were aware of how it interacted with the role of the teacher. They were aware of the ethical grey areas that we're all navigating. So, the names to mention there are obviously Vince Wallwood's the teacher who brought them to us to be in and arranged it all. So fantastic from Vince. Yeah. And he's gone on and done a bunch of research he's published as well as teaching all his students. So great. But it was Abby, Miranda, Eloise, Charlotte, and Annie were the students. So if you want to go back and feel good about the future generations, go back to those 2 episodes and listen to the kids.
100%.
Yeah.
And then when we took a little bit of a spin and detour, I think one of the other awards that we can think about, and that this happened in November, around listening to Indigenous voice. And this one I'd call out specifically Peta-Anne Toohey of Indigital, because for me, it opened my eyes to things that I hadn't thought about with regard to how we can really think about sovereign AI. And her job title was the best. It was a reciprocity manager. But it was, a conversation was just, that actually blew my mind. That was one of my favorite episodes, because it made me leave in the episode thinking how little I knew, to be honest with you. It was brilliant.
So the award I'm going to give for that one is the most nerve-wracking interview of the year, because I was nervous going into the conversation, because I'm always a little bit nervous about saying the wrong thing in a discussion about Indigenous rights.
Yeah.
And I know Peter was a bit nervous as well, because who wouldn't be? 2 idiots like us asking dumb questions.
Yeah.
So, I think, I don't know how you felt, but I was kind of really nervous. As I was going through it, I felt better and better. And it made me really assess the way I was thinking about Indigenous data rights. Yeah, fantastic. Next award, Dan, I'm going to give for making AI human, or actually making a distinction between AI and humans. So Carlo Iacono from Charles Sturt University.
Yeah. phenomenal. And I wasn't on that episode either. But that was phenomenal. And it was it's actually like so good to listen to in the car as well. Carlo's voice is just so calming, and your voice is so calm. It's great.
Dan, don't listen to it in the car because it's very soporific. It's like mindfulness.
Yeah,
the quote
absolutely.
I loved, and it made me think really hard when he said it, and it still makes me think really hard, is the question he asked was, who do we become in a world of infinite knowledge and infinite access to that knowledge? We become more human. And as I think about that every time, I do think, okay, so I'm doing these processes, I'm doing this work, and I'm using AI for it, and I'm talking to everybody about how I use AI to speed up my work. I'm not worried about being accused of cheating. I'm not worried about being accused of being lazy, because what I'm showing is how I get a long way faster. But I do think about, well, what am I bringing to this? What is the humanness that I'm bringing to this process? And so it does really reset my role, my thinking about the role that I am playing, because sometimes I am playing the role of a wrangler of AI in the same way that I might ask a research assistant who's a human to go off and do some work for me. I use AI in that way. I wouldn't be embarrassed about asking a research assistant to go and research something. So I am not embarrassed about asking AI to do it as well. But
Yeah,
it also made me think about librarians. My memory of librarians is from 30, 40, 50 years ago. So it made me rethink really hard about the role of a librarian in the digital age and maybe the changing role of a teacher.
Yeah, and we've spoken to a couple of librarians through the course of the podcast this year as well. So that's fantastic. Actually, just while you're talking about research, I think I don't know, we're going to be quite, I feel a bit disingenuous calling this award, but the best edu AI researcher. There's so many good researchers out in Australia leading global practice, but Anna has just been leading, Anna Denejkina from the Insight Centre has just been leading the way with actually what's happening with students and young people now. Really insightful. And to take your point, when you look at some of the research and you say, this was done, a year ago and it's taken a long time to come through. I think Anna's work has just been phenomenal because it's quick, it's relevant, it's done in a way that's really easy to kind of digest. And it just informs practice, just reading a research if you're a teacher or an educator or somebody in higher ed or even a parent, and understanding where and what the kids are actually doing in a fair and unbiased way. Because to be fair, when we are interviewing students, it is hard because it's usually the people that put their hands up and go, yeah, I am using AI. There's a lot of students' voice that we don't manage to speak to because the people who want to put their hands up are the ones that are using AI. So she gives us a better perspective on this. And I think that's why she deserves an award from us this year because she's just phenomenal.
Yeah, so I agree. Interesting choice, though, because Anna used to be an academic researcher working in a university. Now she works out in the private sector, which probably enables her to move faster, publish more directly to the audience, and use language that the audience understands. Because it's not an academic paper that has to go through a year's worth of reviews and has to use complicated language. It can be written in a way that even I can understand it. I love that.
And Storyteller of the Year, I think we've got an award for that.
Okay,
so nomination, and
this is a bit of a left field one. So I'm going to nominate Aaron Driver from University of New England as Storyteller of the Year. And this isn't because I think Aaron has studied years of storytelling. It's because he was telling his story for the first time. The story of UNE and their adoption of AI. But it's the way that he told it. We talked about some of the elephants in the room. Like, how do you help students be active learners with AI rather than just consumers of it? And also the very, very frank discussion about graduates and entry-level jobs. He said the jobs are disappearing. And he then, the phrase he uses, like, he said this, it becomes a dereliction of duty for universities to output entry-level graduates paying $50,000 for their degree when they're not going to be able to get jobs because there are no entry-level jobs anymore. Okay, dangerous language, but the sentiment behind it is really important. Like, how do you output graduates that are employable? And I think having them with AI skills is part of it. If I was looking at a law firm and I've got a bunch of crusty old lawyers, that know law really well, but, AI is the work of the devil. Pair them up with a new graduate that understands how to use AI to do research, to do summarization and everything. That pairing is going to be the future of the law firm.
Yes.
And you can't achieve that without having entry-level people coming in with skills and capabilities and then pairing it with experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he just did a great job of telling the stories.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, we do have some runner-ups.
Right.
What we mean by runner-ups is that there's lots of people doing amazing stuff, but we haven't got round to everybody to speak to them on the podcast, right?
Okay, so you can be a runner-up only by not appearing on the podcast this year.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's two that I would like to call out. I think, obviously, when we look in again, and I'm always about impact and how, everybody has impact. An individual teacher has impact. But when you do have impact across the discourse, across countries and sometimes globally, it's very important. And obviously, I think Simone Kirsch and Julianne Polosh have just done an amazing job as community leaders in AI in education in Australia. They've connected industry, they've connected everybody, who we've spoken to on the pod, the Leon Furzes of the world, the Matt Estemans of the world. They just bring everybody together and industry together and just try to keep a community going. And they have webinars every couple of weeks. It's just a really good community. So we have to call those out. And then on the same vein, Sarah Ratner and the team at AIEOU, the Oxford University AI education community, the global impact they had in their inaugural conference where Leigh and Prem went to. We missed out on that one, but we've been invited to go next year, which would be great. But they're doing some amazing stuff. And it's just those communities, like including the communities in New Zealand, they all deserve an award for doing all of this and bringing people together.
And what I love about the community is the people that are starting these are looking at it and saying, well, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? I'll do it. Yeah. And it's not an official thing in many cases. Like if I think about the work that Simone has done in New South Wales, it's like, I've got my job, I've got the other responsibilities, but I think there needs to be a community, so I'll start one. And you maybe don't start having global impact. You start on having an impact on 10 or 20 people that come along to the first meeting and then 50 that come along to the second meeting. And then it just grows from that. And those individuals get a massive benefit from it. And so that community of practice approach, I think, is just such a winner.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I want to, in our runner-ups category, somebody else that I've been bumping into all year, been doing activities with. So I want to name somebody as Education Leader Runner-Up of the Year, and it's Jason Lodge. Jason Lodge from the University of Queensland. And the reason I'm going to say Education Leader is he is leading a bunch of work, not just in the university space, but also in the school space. In the university space, he's doing with the community, he's doing a lot around what does the future of assessment look like. He's been working with Danny Liu and Katie at Microsoft around what is the model of AI in education. And so he is leading from the middle. Nobody's given him a job that says you're in charge of this. He is selflessly doing this on behalf of a lot of other people. But between him and the work that he's been doing with Danny, there's a lot around teaching learning. He's been working with Phil Dawson around assessment. He's been working with Texa around compliance and everything. So actually, he's been working with a lot of smart people, but it's seeing him pop up in all these places. He's just a lovely, lovely person to work with. So well considered. And I can't believe that we've gone a whole year without getting him back onto the podcast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I second that. I follow him a lot on LinkedIn, and he's just very reasoned and part of the discourse in the country and globally is great. Well done, Jason.
Okay, Dan, this is not a primary school race. And so my most hated phrase is everyone's a winner. So everyone's a winner, but somebody out of that whole list of people has got to cross the line first. Now, Dan, it's not allowed to be any of the runner-ups because they weren't on the podcast.
Yes.
What I want to ask from you is think about it. For the people that we've talked to on the podcast, who out of that list of people that we've just nominated into different categories sticks out for you as the winner of winners?
Leigh Williams from Brisbane Catholic Education, just because of the impact and the numbers and the research and the integrity of the project that they've done there to really get AI out to the teachers, to prove that it's saving them time, to actually keep challenging the norms, changing things up and sharing such good practice and saying, hey, this is what we did. If you want to borrow our materials, edit our materials, this is what worked for us, and we're happy to help and lean in. And the work she's doing with women in AI and technology, for me, she's just brilliant.
Okay, so I totally agree with that because I love the way that things have been done in public. My winner of winners is the students.
Brilliant.
And I mean that generally. I mean, how are they coping in this current world? I mean, we're trying to keep up with stuff. How is a student coping when they're surrounded by 30 or 100 peers that are doing different things, and they must be turning their heads all the time? They must be worried with stress about, that student over there is kind of cheating, and are they going to beat me in the exam? All of that stuff. So I reckon students, the people that have managed to keep their head above the water this year and next year, and they are going to be amazing hires when they graduate in a few years' time. So I'll just remind you, Dan, the ones we had on the podcast that we talked about: Caitlin, Abby, Miranda, Eloise, Charlotte, Annie, also Abby. I think we called her in the podcast.
Yes, that's right. Yes, brilliant. And they're all winners for us. Congratulations to everybody today. We've probably missed people out, but I think, it's always good to reflect and look back. And ultimately, when you think about the students as the end winner there, that's what the teachers are in the game for as well, right? So it's a nice way to end it.
So if you're new to the podcast, I think we've just created the list of episodes you should go back and listen to. Dan, you are in charge, I think, of our Spotify presence.
Yes.
So what we need to do over the next couple of weeks is create a playlist of the winners of the winners.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yes, brilliant.
Christmas morning, while you're stuffing the turkey, you can be listening to our top podcasts.
You just stuffing turkey the day before, surely. But I'll go with that.
Dan, there's about 14 episodes there, so I think you will need to start playing them on Christmas Eve.
Cool. Thanks again, Ray, and thanks and well done for everybody who've interviewed all through the year. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think it's okay for us to take a couple of weeks up over Christmas.
Yes, definitely.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dan. See you in 26.
Happy Christmas. Take care.
Thank you.